9. CHERYSSE Cleveland. One morning in June of 2021, a middle-aged woman asked McDonald's workers in Ravenna, Ohio, to mix 3 different slushy flavors into one drink for her. The manager said that they couldn't do that, but the customer persisted and became increasingly confrontational. She eventually tried going behind the counter to mix the slushy herself, at which point a nearby customer started filming the ordeal with his phone. Brian Allen later told local outlet WOIO that he decided to hit the record button because he was worried that the disgruntled woman would hurt someone, and he wanted to have video evidence in case the police got involved. His foresight paid off when what started as a verbal disagreement became physical. The footage showed the customer throwing a cup of ice and punching a worker in the eye. An all-out brawl ensued as the employee tackled the woman to the ground and punched her repeatedly in the face. Police soon arrived at the scene and led the combative customer away in handcuffs. They charged 44-year-old CHERYSSE Cleveland with 2 counts of misdemeanor assault. She was found guilty and apologized for her behavior in court. Cleveland said that she was embarrassed about the incident and that she was in counseling to address her issues. 8. Trio trashes restaurant. In an unprovoked attack that went viral on TikTok in July 2022, a trio of women in their 20s completely trashed a Big Apple restaurant and injured a worker. The customers requested extra sauce for their fries at Bell Fries on Manhattan's Lower East Side, and were told that they would have to pay $1.75 for it. They erupted into a tirade and started destroying things throughout the restaurant, including computers and a cash register. They threw items at terrified staff members who stood by and watched in horror. The women seemed amused by their behavior. At one point, 2 of them took a break from hurling objects to stand on the counter and twerk. They caused an estimated $25,000 in damages. At least 1 employee was hurt in the colossal tantrum and ended up in the hospital. All 6 workers who were on duty at the time were left so traumatized afterward that they were afraid to return to work, according to the restaurant's owner, who spoke with NBC4. Pearl Osoria, Shitara Placentia, and Tatiana Johnson face charges of robbery, criminal mischief, assaulting an officer, resisting arrest, and disorderly conduct. The owner of Bell Fries condemned the bystanders who watched the destruction play out for cheering the women on rather than coming to the aid of employees. Sadly, the restaurant has been closed ever since the ordeal. 7. Antoine Sims. After receiving a call about a dispute at a local McDonald's one day in 2022, police in Kennesaw, Georgia arrived to find 24-year-old Antoine Sims giving the manager a hard time over some cold fries. He also claimed that he never got a receipt and that the manager had touched the fries with his bare hands. Both parties told officers that they had gotten into a shouting match. The manager wanted Sims removed from the property for trespassing, but the unruly customer refused to leave and continued to complain about his fries to the police. Body cam footage later showed Sims saying to an officer, "They're lukewarm, but they're not hot." The fries would soon be the least of the man's worries. As he filled out some paperwork for a criminal trespass notice, officers ran his ID and saw that he was wanted for a murder that happened back in 2018. When the police told Sims that he was under arrest, he took off on foot. They apprehended him 20 minutes later. Sims is accused of 21-year-old Adalisa Muratovic in a drug deal gone wrong, then driving her car to another neighborhood with her body inside and lighting it on fire. He failed to appear in court for the homicide and had somehow managed to fly under the radar until he couldn't contain his emotions over some fast food. 6. George Santiago. Early one morning in 2022, a man tried to visit a Chase bank on Manhattan's Upper East Side before it opened for the day and demanded that the guard let him inside. He was sent away, but returned later that morning and flew into a rage when a teller told him that the services he needed could only be performed over the phone. Employees asked the man to leave and called security. While being escorted out, the belligerent customer pulled a knife and stabbed the guard in the neck inside the bank's vestibule, then ran off and disappeared into a nearby subway station. The guard was rushed to the hospital where he underwent emergency surgery. He pulled through, but was still in critical condition at the last update. Police identified the suspect as 34-year-old George Santiago, who lives about 10 blocks from the bank, according to the New York Daily News. They caught up with him in the Bronx hours later and found 2 knives in his possession. Santiago was charged with attempted murder, assault, and possession of a weapon. According to police, he's been arrested at least 4 times in the last 14 years and served 5 months in prison after being convicted in a 2017 assault in the Bronx. His latest arrest came amid an ongoing crime surge in the Big Apple that many blame on the increasingly lenient policies toward offenders that have been introduced in New York in recent years. Only time will tell whether Santiago will benefit from the soft-on-crime culture that seems to have become the status quo among state and city leaders. 5. Melvin Williams. A customer needlessly resorted to violence when he was unsatisfied with his food during a visit to an Atlanta Subway restaurant in 2022, leaving one worker dead and another fighting for her life. 36-year-old Melvin Williams allegedly became angry because there was too much mayonnaise on his sandwich. Instead of addressing the problem rationally, he began arguing with employees. They escorted him out of the restaurant, at which point he pulled a gun and began firing inside. 24-year-old Jada Statham, who was at her workplace with her 5-year-old son, had already pushed the little boy under the counter to protect him from Williams. Just moments before the onslaught of bullets began, she was shot twice while shielding him and was taken to the hospital in critical condition. Her coworker, best friend, and roommate, 26-year-old Brittany McCone, was killed. The women had started working at the restaurant together just weeks before the shooting. In the short time they were there, they were model employees, according to co-owner Willie Glenn, who spoke with Channel 2 Action News. Statham faces a long road to recovery from both her physical injuries and her grief over losing her best friend. In the meantime, Williams is behind bars on suspicion of murder and aggravated assault, marking at least the 8th time he's landed himself in the Fulton County Jail. Many were shocked to learn that at the time of the shooting, he was out on bond for allegedly choking the mother of his child during a domestic dispute last year. As a condition of his release, Williams was banned from owning a weapon, but his history and the accusations he faces are a good reminder that some criminals never learn to respect the law. 4. QUINASHA Thompson. After receiving what she later described as a watery blizzard from a Dairy Queen in College Station, Texas, 2021, 28-year-old QUINASHA Thompson asked for either a refund or a new blizzard. A verbal altercation ensued, and it ended with Thompson hitting 2 workers with her car. She told police that when she complained about her ice cream, the employees started taunting her and laughing at her, and that one staff member removed their headset and challenged her to a fight. Thompson said that she pulled around the drive-thru with plans to get out of her car and fight the worker, but when she noticed several employees heading toward the exit, she drove up on a concrete block in an attempt to block the door and stop them from coming outside. The vehicle struck 2 workers, causing them to fall backwards and leaving them both with leg injuries. Armed with their own version of events, the employees told police that they offered Thompson a refund but needed her to sign the credit card receipt for it. The disgruntled customer allegedly became combative, prompting 2 workers to go outside to capture photos of her car and license plate so that they could report her to the law enforcement. They said that Thompson drove up onto the concrete block as they were walking outside, and that they feared for their lives throughout the ordeal. While the parties gave conflicting stories about the confrontation, surveillance footage confirmed that Thompson drove up to the restaurant's door and hit the employees. According to a police report, officers ultimately sided with the workers and charged Thompson with 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon. She was taken to the Brazos County Jail and held on bonds totaling $30,000. 3. Alison Coletti. Early one morning in 2022, a woman went to a Denny's restaurant in Leesburg, Florida with a male companion and tried to order grits. The server told her that grits wouldn't be available until later that day, and she immediately became upset and argumentative. Suspecting that the woman was drunk, a staff member called 911. In the meantime, the pair left the restaurant. The woman got behind the wheel of a truck and started to go back out of the parking space, but was stopped by a police officer who arrived at the scene just in time. She didn't notice the cop until he tapped on her window to get her attention. The disgruntled customer, later identified as 52-year-old Alison Coletti, allegedly demanded to know why the police were there. She denied any wrongdoing and said that she just wanted to eat some turkey and dressing. In maintaining her innocence, Coletti claimed that she hadn't been drinking, but officers could smell alcohol and noticed that her eyes were bloodshot. She was also reportedly unable to follow basic directions and refused a field sobriety test. At that point, an officer told Coletti that she was under arrest and handcuffed her. Suddenly, she changed her tune and said that she was willing to do a sobriety test. But when the cops uncuffed her, she allegedly threatened to fight him. She then refused a breathalyzer, but eventually admitted that she had been drinking. Coletti was charged with felony DWI and refusing to take a breathalyzer test. She already had 3 DWI convictions under her belt, meaning that she could face more serious consequences than she has in the past if convicted, including possible prison time and permanently losing her driver's license. 2. Shuko Sandoval. Shuko Sandoval was at a smoke shop in Las Cruces, New Mexico in 2021 when he noticed that a fellow customer was acting suspicious. The man, later identified as 26-year-old Anthony Malone, had been in the store for around an hour, according to a staff member, who later told detectives that he kept looking toward the employee entrance as if he were waiting for an opportune moment to get behind the counter. After noticing that the 2 female workers on duty seemed uncomfortable, Sandoval told one of the women that he would stick around until Malone left. At Malone's request, the manager on duty showed him $300 worth of watches from a display case. He tried to grab them from her, but she grabbed them back. Malone then shoved the woman and ran for the store's exit. Sandoval pulled a gun on the unarmed man and told him to stop, but he kept running. The armed customer fired 3 bullets into Malone's chest. He collapsed to the ground, and Sandoval attempted to help him while someone else dialed 911. In what seems like a misguided attempt to stop a criminal from getting away, Sandoval told officers that he was aiming for Malone's shoulder and accidentally struck his chest. He cooperated with law enforcement, but was ultimately charged with second-degree murder. It will now be up to a jury to decide whether the shooting was justified or if Sandoval took things too far. 1. Crystal Whipple. When Crystal Whipple tried to pay for a $35 manicure with a fraudulent credit card at a Las Vegas nail salon in 2018, the card was denied. She told the manager, 51-year-old Nya Annie Nyap Win, that she was going to run outside and grab some cash from her car. Annie saw Whipple starting to drive away and ran outside to try stopping her. She jumped in front of the car, and Whipple hit the gas anyway and mowed the woman down before fleeing the scene. Nguyen died from her injuries after being dragged by the car. Police found the Camaro that Whipple had been driving in the parking lot of a nearby apartment complex. They discovered that it was a stolen rental car. Whipple eluded law enforcement for the next 2 weeks until police caught up with her in Arizona. She was extradited back to Nevada and charged with Nguyen's murder. To avoid going to trial, she pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and received a 10 to 25-year sentence. Thanks for watching. If you walked into a store and saw a group of customers harassing an employee, would you directly intervene, discreetly contact the police, or stay out of it entirely? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe.